to pop on the link, which I unfortunately have to do manually, onto the or for the rest of us website. So give me just 1 second to do that. Oh boy, my computer's going really slow again. Don't know why it does that. Let me close a few things. If you are joining me and haven't seen this before, what I'm doing is I'm recording courses, or I'm recording lessons, I should say, for a course that I have coming up. Should be released later this month, called Going Deeper with R. And yeah, I am recording them basically in real time, live streaming my recording process. And so what you're going to see is kind of an unedited version of me recording the courses. You'll see I go back, redo things. I often don't like the first take, need to change things. So be prepared for that. Give me just 1 second. I'm not very good at multitasking, so let me just get my live stream link up on the website, and then I will come back and start recording. Okay. Oh boy, come on computer, you can do it. All right. Okay, I am just about to hit save on the website. So if you are watching on the website, that should appear now. Okay, so I got my materials here. I'm going to open up a new RStudio window because I'm going to be working. I kind of go through the lesson, then I show sample code, show as well as solutions for exercises that students do. So let me get that set up. Okay. All right, almost set, folks. Sorry about this. Okay. I'm going to open up, I have 2 R Markdown documents that I work with. One is kind of my code, and another is the example that the student is doing. You know, I need to actually say, sorry, one last thing. I just need to kick my dog out of the room. Here you go. Out. Here, take your toy. Go. Come on, buddy, go out. All right, let me scroll through, get to the place that I stopped last time. Did a lot of removing things last time. Yeah, we used the scales package. We did some direct labeling. Right, we're on this lesson, adding text, or sorry, using access text wisely. So actually, I can already see, I like to kind of remind the students every time what the issue is. So what I'm going to do, oops. Include equals true. I'm just going to add a slide to display the chart that we had up from before. All right, I have this knit. All right. Well, I just let this knit. I'm just curious if anyone is watching. If you're curious who you are, where you're watching from, feel free to put that in any of the chats. If you're on YouTube, Twitch, or Twitter, I get all those. It should be just about done. Yeah. All right. Cool. Make sure this did exactly what I want it to do. Oh, you know what? Of course, I forgot to yeah. Forgot to remove that line. Let me actually just change this. Basically, I have a code chunk before that produces what I want. Basically, I want to show that. So what I want to highlight is the axis labels here are not particularly effective, right? Because they're 0.25, 0.50, 0.75, and we want those to be 25%, 50%, 75%. So I just want to re-show that. There we go. All right, this should actually be a quite short lesson, which is nice. Okay. The next thing we're going to do in improving, what do I want to say? Something about explaining, because that's in the section that I'm in. The next thing we want to do is use our axis text wisely to help explain what's happening with our graph. Let's look at where we ended up last time. We have this graph, right? We've added some text that looks pretty good. Some direct labeling, that is. The 64% of students are proficient, 28% in 2017, 2018. Notice though that our axis labels here don't look particularly great, right? We have 0.25, 0.50, 0.75, when in fact that should be 25%, 50%, 75%. So let me show you how you can actually change that. All right, so here's our code that we ended up with last time. What I'm going to do is I want to change my y-axis. So I'm going to use a scale function. So scale y, then it's going to give me a bunch of different options. This is continuous data, right? It goes from 0 to 1 in our case. And we need to change the format of it, right? It's showing 0.25, 0.50, 0.75. So to change the format, this also comes from the scales package, but you can see when I start typing percent, there is a percent format function. What that does is, whereas before, for example, if I typed, let me even type it down here, if I did like percent 0.25, that will display 25%. But we are using this percent format function because, let me comment that out. Let me run that whole thing. So we're using this percent format function because it's not just a single variable. It's this axis text is created dynamically. So we can't just give it, for example, the values. It may be different text on the axis depending on the values here. So let me uncomment this, run that with our percent format. You can see now we have 75%, 50%, 25%. And percent format also has an accuracy argument. So I could, for example, do accuracy equals 0.1. I don't think that's actually effective here, so I'm going to remove it, but I just wanted to show you. The other thing that I could do is I could also, and this is something that came from the fundamentals course, is we could set the limits. So I could have it go from 0 to 1, in other words, from 0 to 100%. And you can see now it displays all the way from 0 to 100%. Okay, I need to stop for a second and just trying to remember because I made some changes here. Oh yeah, that's what I did. I changed the theme ipsum. Okay. Minimize that. Just make sure it's finished. Okay, cool. All right. Yeah, that looks good. All right, so flipping back to our slides, you can see I have highlighted the line where I've added the formatting. And this is what we end up with. Nice axis text labels. So for your turn, I want you to make your y-axis labels show up as nicely formatted percents using the percent format function. Okay, let me close this, open the other markdown, our markdown document, restart my session. Okay. Hello, Marcel. I just saw your note. Thanks for following along as I do this. It's it's kind of perfect actually because you can't really go anywhere right now. So I'm here sitting in my house recording lessons. So curious where you're joining from, if you don't mind sharing. Okay, let me run this. Okay. All right, so here's where I ended up last time. We've got our the percentage of Latino students in districts across Oregon from the last 2 years. And we want to format this Y percent, the Y axis, basically get percents there. So I'm going to do scale Y, continuous, labels equals percent format. And that would be me spelling labels wrong. Let me try that again. Perfect. And I might just add limits equals C01. Yep, there we go. And there are a whole other bunch of things. For example, there's dollar format. Obviously, this is not dollar data, but you can see it formats it nicely as dollars. Comma format, which if you're dealing with like thousands, it will automatically add commas for you. Really nice set of functions in the scales package, but I'll leave it as percent format. All right, I'm going to stop my recording and start it again. Let me just name that file. So that's axis text. Okay. I'm going to close that, do that, restart my session. Okay. Excellent, Marcel. I see you say you're from Brazil, living in Paris. Great. Well, I hope things are not too out of control there. I know I have a collaborator I work with outside of Paris who said that the lockdown has been pretty intense. So I hope you're doing okay. Let's see. So I'm going to talk about titles now. Just need to kind of review this. Huh, that's weird. That's interesting. It only seems to highlight the, so I'm using the Sharingan package and it highlights lines, but it only seems to highlight whatever text shows up. That doesn't do anything. Let me take a look at this. Great, Marcel. Glad to hear that things have been okay with you. Let me small. So I made a custom class called small in my CSS file. You can see here, just to make things slightly smaller for examples like this where the code doesn't quite fit. Yeah, okay, that looks like it works. Let me make it, yeah, that's fine actually. All right, so first what I'm going to do, I'm just kind of looking through my slides again. Oh, I want to update this. Whoops. So first I just want to show using the \n to make a new line. And then I'm going to actually have a separate lesson on using color using the ggtext package. So hold on one second. All right, that should be good for now. Let me reknit that. Okay. Okay. Oops. You know, sorry, one last thing, and I know I do this, I've done this so many times, but that visualization is just so good, the John Byrne Murdoch one, that I actually want to add it back again. As a way to demonstrate the idea of using descriptive titles. So the main thing I want to get across here is that people should consider not just generic titles, but titles that actually describe what the findings are. so I got that, and then it's going to flip over here. Yeah, perfect. All right, one last thing. Okay. All right. Next, we're going to talk about how to use titles effectively. Taking a look back at the COVID spread chart that we've been referencing over our... Hold on, let me try that again. Next, we're going to talk about how to use titles effectively. And the main thing I want to get across is that you should actually use your titles to highlight your findings. If you take a look back at the visualization from the Financial Times that we've looked at several times, note that the title here is not a generic, spread of coronavirus. It's actually telling you what the main finding is. Most Western countries are on the same coronavirus trajectory. Hong Kong and Singapore have managed to slow the spread, right? This is a really effective way of getting across the main message, not forcing your reader to figure out what it is. So, okay, I actually want to get out of here. Whoops, I don't want that one. I want, sorry, wrong one. So looking at my chart from before, I think the main thing I want to highlight here, of course, is the growth that Vestal Elementary School saw. So I'm going to add my title using the labs function that, again, we talked about in the fundamentals of our course. And I'm going to say Vestal Elementary School showed large gains in third grade math proficiency rates between 2017-2018 and 2018-2019. So go ahead and run that. You can see now, okay, so I've got a title that's descriptive, but you can see it's getting cut off here. So what I need to do is I need to put this on multiple lines, and the way we're going to do that is we're going to do the \n. So watch what happens when I add that. It's a special character, and that just adds a new line. That right there, the \n does that. So now it says Vestal Elementary School showed large gains in third grade math proficiency rates between, etc. Still cut off a bit. I think when I display it on my graph or on my slides, it'll show up fine. And again, when I knit it to something larger than this, it'll show up fine. I think I could even potentially... it's still cut off here, but when I knit it, it would show up just fine. All right, let me... All right, so I've got my code here with the title and that new line special character. And you can see what I end up with is this. All right, for your turn, I want you to add a title to highlight your main finding. You may need to use that the new line special character to make sure it all fits. Let me actually do one thing. because I'm kind of asking people to go on faith and believe that this will show up correctly, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually knit it and show people. So let me actually go ahead and just knit this to show you that it will, in fact, show up okay. So I'm knitting down here. I'll edit this so it'll knit really fast. It's the beauty of editing after the fact. Oops, sorry. I've got too many windows. All right, so I've knitted this, and you can see I now have an HTML document here. When I open this up, if I scroll down, obviously I'm going to want to change some of this. Oh, you know what? It is actually getting cut off. So I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to set my default figure width here in the setup code chunk. I'll just set it to 10. I'm going to actually change this. I don't need to echo my code. I want message equals false and warning equals false as well. Let me reknit that. All right, so now I'm back here. If I refresh this, you can see I'm just getting my results. All right, perfect. Now it's showing up. Okay. Open this up. I'm going to restart my session. And I'm going to actually do the same thing here. I'll just copy this. Here. All right, let's add a descriptive title here. This is what we ended up last time. So I'm going to do labs title equals Douglas ESD saw a large growth in its Latino student population from 2017-2018 to 2018-2019. Run that. And yeah, that looks pretty good. And it actually shows up. I don't even have to put it on a new line. One small thing you might want to do, you'll note that with theme minimal, by default, the title is not bolded. So if you wanted to change that, you could do plot title equals element. This is a text element. And then we do face equals bold. And now you can see it shows up bold, which is a little bit nicer in my opinion. All right. I'm going to close this, restart my session, go down to there. Oops, don't want to do that yet. Okay. All right, so on this lesson, I just need to check my code real quick. Oh yeah, I already changed that. Let me see how well this shows up. Okay, definitely need to make this small. All right, let me knit this, see how it looks, and then I'll start working. All right. Well, it still doesn't highlight everything over there. I'm not going to worry about that. If I were doing this again, if there's a package that was actually just released on Crayon called Flare, that does this, I think, really nicely. But it's too late because I already made the slides, so for a future edition. All right. Just going to change this to be consistent. The next thing we're going to talk about doing is improving our titles even more by using color. You can use color really effectively to communicate in often cases. Let's talk about another way to improve your titles. The title that we added last time was good in that it highlighted a finding. We can improve it even more by using color. Let me show you how. All right, so this is where we ended up last time. We have just a black title. So the way we're going to do this, there are actually two things we need to do. Well, a few things. First of all, to add color to titles, we're going to need to use a new package. And I'm just going to add it at the top because I like to keep all of my packages together, just so I know. This package is called ggtext. The way ggtext works is this. We're going to put within this line, the labs line, we're going to convert this to HTML and use some simple HTML. So if you don't know HTML, please don't go running. I'll show you all you need to do. It's really simple to add some color. So to do that, first of all, I'm going to delete that new line. That works if you just have a regular title. But when we convert it to HTML using the ggtext package, we are going to do it in a different way. So the way you add a new line with HTML is you use that BR tag, which is for a line break. So I'm going to put that there. Now, first of all, if I just run this, note what happens. That BR just shows up as special text. Right now, ggplot is just interpreting the text in the title argument as literal text, and it's just displaying it. But if we want to change the color of it, or if we want to make any, wait, hold on, let me. What we're going to do now is we're going to add some HTML, and then we'll add some code later that will tell ggplot, hey, don't interpret this as literal text, interpret it as HTML and format it using the HTML that I list. So what I want to do is I want to highlight Vestal Elementary School in orange so it shows the reader, hey, orange here, it's the same thing. Okay, so the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to add a span tag, and then I'm going to do style equals single quote color colon, and it's the color that's the RRU orange color. Whoops, sorry, that is not the right place. And then I end my span tag right there. What that does is it sets the color for the text that's here, and I need to end my span tag like that. So that will make the text here show up as orange, and everything else will just be regular. I actually think I did something wrong. Hold on. Oh, yeah. All right, let me try adding that span tag again. I just had an extra quote. Yeah. The next thing I want to do is I'd like to change the color of Vestal Elementary School, that text, to be orange, so it's really clear to the reader that, hey, this orange line shows Vestal Elementary School. So we're going to have to add a little bit more text. We're going to add a little bit more HTML, I should say. We're going to add a span tag, style equals, and we're going to have to do single quote here, color colon, and now I need to set the color. I can't actually use an R object here. I have to just put this in. Because this is going to be interpreted as HTML, and HTML wouldn't understand what RRU orange is. So I'm going to put that like that. And then I'm going to add a close span tag like that at the end to indicate that only this should be put in that orange. Okay? Now I need to do one last thing. That went down to a new line, but let me just make this slightly larger, okay? Now, I'm going to use the theme function here, plot title equals, and there is a special option now that comes up, element markdown. what that does, if I say, hey, plot title is element markdown, that means don't treat this as raw text. So in other words, if I just run it like that, all that span stuff is going to show up here. But if I add this plot title equals element markdown, watch what happens. Now Vestal Elementary School shows up in orange because that span tag is treated as HTML, and the BR tag here actually makes a new line. Again, a reminder, if I now added that new line like that, that's not going to work because that's not HTML. The HTML way of doing it is to add the BR. Again, if you don't know a ton of HTML, don't worry about it. The main thing you need to do is this here to add color, and this for a new line. With that, you can do most, pretty much all that you would want to do. All right, so you can see I have the same code here, the important elements highlighted. We end up with that. So for your turn, I want you to use color in your title to highlight your main finding. You're going to need to add some HTML in the labs function to add the title, change the plot title argument in the theme function so that it interprets the HTML correctly. Okay. Close that. Oregon Schools Diversity Report. Run everything down to here. All right, let's use some color here to make our plot more effective. So I'm going to do this. First, I'm going to do library GG text. I'm going to run that. And I need to, so I'm using color equals blue. So let me actually, in a minute, I'm going to need to figure out exactly what that hex value is. So first thing I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to add span style equals color hold on, what am I doing wrong here? I feel like I'm not doing this right. Oh, yeah. Let me just start this again. All right, so here's the chart that we ended up last time. It's got a perfectly good title, but it's all black, and it might be nice, for example, to replicate that blue in the title here. So first thing I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to load the GG text package. So I'll do that up here, GG text. Now I can come back down here, and I'm going to add the code that I need to make that text blue. So style equals color. Now I actually need to figure out what that blue is. And actually, I'll put this up here. Gina Reynolds actually just posted something on Twitter. I know if anyone's watching this on Twitter, it's probably really weird because I'm showing Twitter and you're watching on Twitter. You're like going into the vortex or something. But she actually just posted something. Let me see if I can find it. That had all the named colors. Yeah, this is what I want. So these named colors, we can look at them here. I'm gonna actually just figure out, I'm gonna inspect this. Gosh, this isn't really great, actually. Maybe I'll have to update this with the hex values. Oh man, let me see. I get that right. I'm gonna actually let's see if I can find this. On GitHub. Here we go. So I could update that. I'm wondering if there's an easier way. Surely someone's already made something that shows named colors. Oh, is this it? And hex values. No. No, I don't want palettes. I want I just want some like a simple table that shows converting between blue and whatever the hex value is, because when we're doing it in HTML we can't just say blue. Although actually, let me try something. You can do named values. I could just do color equals blue. The thing is, I'm not sure if the blue is going to be the exact same shade. Actually, that's pretty good. Okay. Actually, I'm not even going to worry about it then. Try one thing. let me get back to where this was. All right. After I've loaded the package, the GG text package, I'm going to add some HTML code here in order to change the color of Douglas ESD. So span style equals single quote color, and I'm just going to put blue here. That actually turns out to work. It'll actually give us basically the same shade of blue. I'm not sure if it's exactly the same shade. But for our purposes right now, it's close enough. Let me go ahead and run that. Oh, so that worked, but it worked insofar as I added that text. But you can see up here, I have plot title equals element text. I'm going to need to change that to element, whoops, not element R markdown, element markdown. I messed up. I put A at the end. A is for a link. I've been working on another website. I think that's why I put it. So let me change that to span, close that there, run that. And now you can see Douglas ESD saw large growth in its Latino student population, etc. All right, let me stop. I'm just looking at, excuse me, what else I have to do. All right, I think I'll do the annotations lesson. That might be it for today, because then I'm kind of moving into a new section. All right, let me close this, open up third grade math proficiency report, restart my session, run everything down to this point, and then run that code chunk. Oh, I wonder what that, where did I get that annotation from? Or that, I mean, it's definitely another Financial Times piece. I should have written down where exactly I got that from. Hold on, let me see if I can figure it out. So I want to link to this. Financial Times, coronavirus, electricity usage. Here, I can bring this over here so you can see what I'm working on. I want that graph. I know it was. Where did I get that? Ah, here we go. Here we go. Okay, let me just pop in the source here. Well, actually, I'm going to make another slide. So the source, I'll make this small. Just copy that. And I just want to use a different chart here, so do that. All right, let me knit this. All right, make sure that shows up. Whoops. Oops, wrong one. Put the class in the wrong place, has to be before the title. I don't think I actually need a title there. Just show the visualization itself. Okay. Refresh this. I'm actually just making a slightly smaller version of this. Just gonna resize it. And that should show up better because you can see it's getting cut off here. Okay. Hopefully that'll fit. Okay, ooh, looks ugly. I mean, hold on, I don't like that at all. Looks really pixelated now. I wonder if I made it too small. One or two when I save it. As a JPEG, if that's reducing the quality each time I save it. Let me export this as a PNG. Okay, flip back here. sure size didn't make it. Okay, I made it not quite so small. I think that might actually be a little big, but let me see. Why? Let me make sure I got the file name. I think I did. Marcel, you're asking about whether the scripts will all be available. Yes. I will post the link in just a second. Okay, that worked. Let me make sure it's, yeah, that's the PNG. Okay. Now let me just resize the PNG. Actually, let me I'm not, I'll just do it manually. I think it's like 500 is what ends up fitting well here. The one thing I'll say, Marcel, is that it's things are changing, as you can see right now. So, you know, what I'm posting today, I mean, obviously things may change as I finalize the course. Okay, that looks good. All right, you know what, let me just delete the last 10 minutes of rambling from my video. Restart my recording. Okay. All right, let's talk about another way to effectively explain your findings in your graph to help your reader really understand what's going on. One of the ways to do this is using annotations. The Financial Times consistently has excellent annotations, as you can see in the chart here, which you'll actually see a little better here. So this is a chart showing the reduction and change in pattern of electricity demand. And the most important thing I want to highlight is how they use text and then arrows to point at specific things to highlight exactly what's going on, so it's really obvious for the reader, right? So let's talk about how to make annotations in ggplot. So looking at the visualization that I've made here, one thing I might want to explain is what the heck all these other gray lines are. So I'm going to add an annotation for that. The way this works is we're using the conveniently named annotate function. And let me actually just open up, whoops. Hold on one second. Looks like it didn't load everything. Let me try this again. While I'm waiting for this to load, Marcel, I'm curious what you use R for. Okay. Yeah, let me try this now. All right, let's think about how we can use annotations to help our reader understand what's going on in this graph. One thing I think we might consider doing is using some annotation to explain what these gray lines are, right? Like you and I know that they represent all schools, but it might be helpful to explain that to the reader. So to do that, I'm going to use the annotate function. And let me actually open up the help for that. So if I open up the help, and you might want to do the same, you'll see there are a number of things going on here. The first argument is the type of geom that we're using. And so in our case, what we're going to do, you can see there are a number of items you can do: text, rect or rectangle, segment, point range. We're just going to add text annotation for now. Text. And then what we need to do is we need to say, where should this be placed? So where on the x-axis, where on the y-axis. So looking at it, I was thinking maybe like here, so that looks about, somewhere between 25 and 50%. Let's just say, oh wait, that's our y. So that should be 0.37 because it's we know that the actual values are 0 to 1. And then our x, so remember this is 1, or sorry, this is, I can't remember. Let me try 1. I think I'm going to have to go back and look at this. Marcel, I was just asking what you use R for, what kind of work you do and what you use R for. Hold on, let me run this. Oh wait, I don't have a label. Yeah, okay. Oh, nice. Bioinformatics. Excellent. All right. Okay. So looking at our x-axis, the first year here, this is just going to be categorical data, right? 2 years, 2017, 2018, 2018, 2019. So if I put 1, it'll show up on 2017, 2018. If I put 2, it'll show up here. I actually want it to be a little bit past this, so maybe I'll do like 2.2. And then the last thing I need to do is I need to say, well, what's the text, the label? And so I'm going to say, I'll just say, I'm going to say light gray. Gray lines represent all schools, or all Portland public, or all schools in Portland public, or what's the, yeah, I'll just say represent all schools in Portland. Let me do that again. So for my label, I'll say gray lines represent all schools in Portland. So now if I run this, you can see I get an annotation here. Okay, few things going on here. First of all, it has centered it at 2.2, so it's still a little bit, it's not exactly where I want it to be, so I'm going to play around with it a little bit. I'd like to get it right over here. So what I actually might consider doing is using HJust here. So if I do HJust equals 1.05, or sorry, I should do hold on, let me actually look at the code that I wrote. Okay. All right, so now what I might want to do, I want to position it a little bit better. Let me do HJust equals 0 to adjust the horizontal position. Okay, that's gone a little bit too far. Let me move the X so it's just at 2, and it'll put it directly to the right of that. Okay, that's pretty good. Let me just add a tiny bit of space there. 2.02. All right, that looks pretty good. And then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a new line there, put it on 2 lines so it doesn't stretch super wide. And I'm using that new line like that because I'm not using HTML here. I'm just using regular text. So I can do a couple other things. I want to change the color. So I'm going to change the color to RRU gray. Here I can use this variable because, again, I'm not using HTML. So if I run that, so if I run that, I can actually see that gray is a little bit too light. Hold on. I had this issue before and I already worked it out. So if I look at what I have, I can see that gray is actually a little bit too light. So I've actually found a gray that is slightly darker. Put in the hex code there. And now it shows up a little bit better. One other thing I might do is I might just adjust my line height. So it's just a little closer together. I find in general, ggplot, by default, the line height is a bit higher than I'd like. I'd like things a little bit more condensed. So I'm going to do, I'll try 0.75. What am I doing here? Did I do anything here? I guess I didn't actually do it. Maybe I'll just skip that. It's pretty minor. That's a bit too small. I'll just leave it like that. All right, so now with this new color, you can see it shows up nicely, and I have some nice annotation here. I need to copy this in here. All right, let me knit that again. Cool, Marcel. I love thanks for sharing about your work. I love just kind of knowing about the different things that people do with R. The work that you do sounds really interesting. It's also so far from what I do. Unexpected symbol. What did I do wrong here? Oh. Marcel, I'm an anthropologist by training, but I actually never used R in grad school. I picked it up then on my own. After leaving grad school, I left academia and worked in, or started to do work in what's called program evaluation, which is essentially applied social science research. And yeah, I taught myself. And at this point, I do this full time. I teach R, and then have online courses, do trainings for organizations, and then I also do kind of data visualization work primarily and other consulting work using R. But I've actually written in the past. I don't actually use. I feel like a bit of an outsider sometimes because I don't actually use R for any kind of hardcore stats. I basically just do descriptive stats in R. All right, let me... Okay, cool. This looks good. All right, so here we have the code that we ended up with, and there is our final result. For your turn, I want you to add an annotation somewhere in your chart to help the reader understand it better. Marcel, I'll actually post a link. That's a project that I have been working on recently and I've done the last 2 years where I produce a report on kind of key social and economic indicators in Oregon for a foundation here. So I produce all those visualizations. I will say people look at it and are like, wow, you designed this whole thing in R. Not exactly. I work with a designer who does all the layout in InDesign, but I create all the individual visualizations. All right. Whoops, I got the wrong one up here. I don't need to knit that. Whoops. All right, looking at this, let's think about what type of annotation we might add. You could do the same kind of thing that I did, just explaining what the lines mean. I thought it might also be interesting to highlight what this top line is. So to do that, let me actually open up enrollment by race ethnicity and figure out kind of what district that is. So I'm just going to sort, actually, you know what, it's going to be easier if I do it this way. So I'll do enrollment by race ethnicity. And then view. So what that's going to do is just going to pop up this with the percentage, the total percentage, and I can now just sort it here so I can see, Woodburn school district has the highest. Okay, so let me go ahead and delete that. Let me run this code again. Let me add a line to show that, or add an annotation. Let me actually just filter. So it looks like it's about 82, 83%. Okay. So I'm going to do, annotate. This is going to be a text. X equals, so I'm going to put it at 2, right? 1, 2. Y equals, I'll do 0.825. And then label equals Woodburn has the highest of any district of Latino students of any district. Okay, let me run this, and then I might do a little bit of, I'll almost certainly do a little bit of tweaking. Okay. So first thing I'm going to do is I'll do hjust equals 0. Then I also can see it's pretty long. So I'm also then just going to move it over slightly. I'll do like 2.02. And add a new line there. Okay. All right, this is starting to look what I want. All right, this is starting to look like what I want. Let me now do color. And I did up here a light gray. I wonder if I just did gray, see how that would look. I think light gray would be too light, which is why I did the gray. Actually looks pretty decent. Cool, so I think I'm pretty set. Let me just go ahead and knit this to see. So I used a keyboard shortcut. You could, of course, hit knit up here. Let me just make sure that nothing is cut off. All right, taking a look at what we've got. If I scroll down here, I can see, ooh, it is just a little bit cut off. So I might just go back here. Oops, I actually forgot an of there. Add that, rename that. And then if I refresh this, yeah, that looks pretty good. Whoops, I have a, don't have a space there. So I could just add that, reknit that, and it would look good. All right, cool. Cool. So at this point, I'm gonna actually log off, go work on some other things. Thank you, Marcel, and anyone else who's been following along. I appreciate it. I'll be back at the same time tomorrow, talking about these things, making it sparkling, not using defaults, tweaking some spacing, customizing themes, making your own custom theme, using custom fonts. I think those will probably be the 3 things that I get to tomorrow. All right, cool.